Ever seen those tricky bets like Arsenal to win 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0 and wondered how you would go about laying this? Well, in this video I'm going to explain just that. Multi-laying might seem really complicated, but it's actually really simple and it can help you unlock some bigger profits with matched betting if you fully understand it. Hi, if you don't know already, my name is Joe and I've been matched betting for a few years now. I would say multi-laying has traditionally been known as a more advanced technique, but to be honest, actually doing it isn't really that hard. So what actually is a multi-lay in matched betting? We use multi-laying in matched betting for bookmaker bets that have multiple outcomes but only one is actually possible. So for example, as I said in the beginning, Arsenal to win 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0. Those are three correct scores. So there are three possible outcomes, but only one is possible because only one score in a football match is possible because there's only one match. So by using a multi-lay, you're effectively laying against all these outcomes. So we're still covered on all sides. So no matter what, we can't lose any money, which is the principle of match betting. We shouldn't lose any money whatsoever, and this is why we use a multi-lay. This bit might be a bit more complicated, so if you don't get it right now, then that's okay. I'm sure with practice, it's easier to understand when you actually do it for yourself. But because it's three different score lines, the liability is shared. First of all, if you don't know what liability is, go and watch, I think it's my second video about explaining what laying is. Laying is a really important concept in match betting, but it's the part that we bet against something. It's called a lay bet and we lay on an exchange. And liability is basically the money we put up to lose if our lay bet actually loses. And with a multi-lay, because we've got multiple outcomes on the same event, but only one is possible, the liability between those three things, for example, on the Arsenal score, 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, the liability is shared. So for example, if the lay odds on the correct score of 1-0 are odds of 10, then if we put a £10 stake on that, our liability would be £90. And say if the same odds were true for the other two score lines, you'd think that if you then laid 2-0 and then you also laid 3-0, then our liability would be 90 plus 90 plus 90. You'd think it would be 270, but that isn't the case with this. Because only one outcome is possible, the liability is shared. An easy way I think about this is basically just the highest liability is taken. So whichever one of those scores when you actually come to laying it has the highest liability, that's the only liability that's going to be taken. I hope that makes sense. But as you do match betting more, you'll understand shared liability better with practice. It's also very common in things like horses and stuff as well. And it's actually really useful for us because it saves us a lot of liability. You can get on multiple things and not have to use up a load of liability on one event, if that makes sense. But that's probably really complicated for the beginning of the video, so don't worry about that if you don't understand it. I'll just move on to multi-laying and how to do it. So I hope I've described what a multi-lay actually is, but when do we need to use it in match betting? As I've already described, if it's, for example, a scoreline of 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, only one scoreline can happen. But also with things like horse races, only one horse can win a race. So you'll see boosts sometimes. There's a lot on Bet365, Super Boost, for example. Two horses, either Constitution Hill or Grey Dawning to win this horse race. Now obviously only one can win, so therefore we'd need to use a multi-lay. So those are a couple of examples, but there'll be loads of other ones, but those are probably the main ones I'd say is a football correct score and horse racing. So how do you go about actually working out a multi-lay? Now, unlike just a normal straight back and lay, with a multi-lay we need to work out our stake for each individual outcome, and in order to do this we need to use a multi-lay calculator. This is a specific calculator. I can link the one that I use and I'll show you on screen the one that I use. It might look really intimidating at first, but how we use it really isn't that complicated. All we've got to do is input all of our figures into the calculator and it tells us what we need to stake on each of the three outcomes or each of the two outcomes or however many outcomes you have. It will tell you how much you need to stake, as I said, in order to not lose any money, because that's the ultimate goal here. We can't lose any money. We're just trying to make money in match betting, not lose it. So let me show an example from the group that I'm in, like a real world example of how we'd use a multi-lay. So an alert was posted for Sheffield United versus Cardiff, either a 1-1 draw or a 2-2 draw as the result. And obviously this is two scorelines in the same match, so we need to use a multi-lay calculator for this. And we'd go about it by putting in all the correct values into the multi-lay calculator. So as you can see, the Bet365 odds are 6.0. Don't worry about the Bet365 selections, this is a different thing. So just imagine this is one bet for now and the odds are 6.0 for 1-0 or 2-0 correct score. Then we'd need to go over to our multi-lay calculator and input all of our values. I'll just show you on this one because it's just easier. So our back stake, the max on this one was £40. Obviously you might not always want to stake the maximum amount on the bookmaker, but for this one we staked £40. And then the back odds were 6, as I've just shown you. The back odds are the odds on 365, the bookmaker. And then we'd have to go onto our exchange, for example, if you're laying on Smarkets, and see what the lay odds for 1-all and 2-all are. So as you can see, you would label these 1, you'd put 1-all maybe, and then 2-all. It might make it a bit easier for you, but Josh is one of our members, he knows what he's doing, so he's just showing it like this. So outcome 1 would be 1-all. It could be either, to be honest, it doesn't matter, but whichever one had odds of 7.6, which I'm guessing is 1-all. So you've looked and it's 1-all, the lay odds for 1-all was 7.6, so you put that in the calculator for outcome 1. And then he's checked the odds for 2-all, which are 19.5, and he's put that in as well. And as I said, you can do as many options as you wanted. So if the bet was for 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0, you just add a new outcome, and then you'd put the 3 in for 1-0, 2-0, and 3-0, if that makes sense. So however many possible outcomes there are, you can add as many outcomes as you need to. And at the bottom, if you can see, I'll try and zoom in, hopefully you can see this all right, it tells you our stakes. Now this setting is on underlay. If you're not familiar between the difference of standard laying and underlaying, then I've got another video on that. But underlaying is basically where you make it so if it doesn't happen, so if it doesn't end 1-0, 1-all, or 2-all, then we just break even. But if it does end 1-all or 2-all, then we make profit. The alternative is standard lay, where we make a smaller profit guaranteed. So he's put it on underlay here. If you wanted to change that, you just use the bit at the top and you change it where it says normal underlay. So on the lay for 1-all at 7.6, we need to stake £28.78, and at for the lay of 2-all at 19.5 odds, we need to stake £11.22. So that's so we can't lose any money. And as you can see, if it does end 1-all or 2-all, then we'll make £21.21 in profit. And it also tells you your total liability on here, which is good. That is including the shared liability bit. So if you have been doing match betting for a bit, you'll realize that is, yeah, it seems less than what it would be if they were two separate things. I hope this makes sense. I'm speaking very fast, but effectively multi-laying, it will make sense when to use it. I hope. That's the main bit, is understanding when to use it. But actually going about it and putting in the different things, it's not that hard. You're just putting in numbers into the calculator and it tells you what you need to stake. I hope that all makes sense. If I have missed anything or you don't understand anything, then make sure to just ask. But I hope this does make sense. I want to try and keep this video pretty brief, and I'm just explaining a concept. As always, if you're interested in the group that I run, then I'll put the link in the description. There's a free one as well if you wanted to get a bit more information and stuff like that. But yeah, again, I've linked the calculator that I use for multi-laying below. If this is just way too complicated for you, then make sure you understand normal laying first and all of the associated things with that. That would be a good starting point. So my early videos will cover stuff like that. So if you are confused by this, don't worry. It is definitely maybe more of an advanced technique. So as I said, yeah, don't worry, but good luck.